Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
And I'm Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
All right, Joe, it is that time of year, one of the most anticipated shows that we put on our annual season preview and prediction roundtable. We've got an illustrious panel back, Rabino, Jordan Hamm. I mean, it wouldn't be a season preview without you gentlemen. Thanks for coming on down.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to be here.
And Brad, an incredible thing about this state-of-the-art studio that we have here is that we have a literal round table in front of us.
I had not put that together till right now. That's
the
great.
stars have officially aligned here on Speak of the Devils. This is going to be a great show.
Yeah. That's got to bode well for the accuracy of the predictions that we're going to bring you folks here over the next little bit. But before we dive into all things football, Joe, we are just a couple days out from perhaps an even bigger event of the season happening this Saturday.
Exactly. The stakes keep getting higher and higher and higher here. We have been beating this drum for a while, folks. This Saturday, I'm not even going to say like August 29th anymore. It's just this Saturday, 3 p.m., 100 Mile Brewing in Tempe, our fourth annual live podcast. Of course, please join Brad and myself. We're going to be joined by Graham Rossini. We're going to be joined by the voice himself, Tim Healy. We also expect women's basketball head coach Molly Miller to be in attendance. We also have a beat on superstar outfielder Landon Hairston. We're putting some pieces together on some of these guest appearances. So we're, again, working on some of the last pieces, but we do have some good traction. It's going to be a star-studded Sun Devil day there at 100 Mile Brewing. Come on out. It's an all-ages show. It's free admission. It's free parking. We're going to give away some swag. It's just going to be a lot of great Sun Devil spirit. We can't do it without you. So come on, join us this Saturday, 3 p.m., Tempe, Arizona, 100 Mile Brewing.
Absolutely going to be a really fun time. Usually, a couple hundred of our Sun Devil friends come out and enjoy. And you never know what might show up, including Doug Tamro's legendary gold shirt.
Oh, it's almost the season when the gold shirt comes out.
Oh,
This is, I think, trying to be as humble as possible. We're kind of integrating this live show into like part of the Sun Devil kickoff enthusiasm for ASU football. And that is something that we take a great deal of pride in. Of course, we're very, very thankful for everyone who's come check us out in the first three shows. And, 2 years ago, ASU got to the college football playoff, and we did a live show that year. So, we take credit for that, pretty much.
Cause and effect.
Exactly. See, this is why we have this brilliance assembled here, to help with this sort of, self-esteem and support and affirmation. Like I said, it's going to be a great show today.
Yeah, since we started doing them at 100 miles, 19 wins? So not too shabby.
Not bad.
Really good.
Science. All right, we have a lot of ground to cover, gentlemen, so let's dive right into our season preview. And, of course, we'll end with our lightning round of predictions. Quarterback, as we record of this, there has still been no official word that Boley will be ASU's starting quarterback this fall. Maybe by the time you're listening to this, it has come down. It is all but a foregone conclusion. Boley has won this quarterback competition since Camp T. He has taken the entirety of the first team reps. Mikey Keene working with the twos, Jake Fette mixed it in a little bit as well. But gentlemen, let's start off the big question. Okay, now we know that Boley, we know the who. But how confident are we right now in Boley as the leader of this Sun Devil offense, coming into this new era?
I think there's a reason not to be confident because I think, first of all, you are talking about a quarterback that does have some good experience under his belt. I know folks are always going to point to the 12 interceptions that he had last year, but I also feel that the coaches dissected that interceptions much more than any other ASU fan out there. And I think you also have to look at his 65% plus completion rate, which also I feel is something that was definitely attractive to the coaches when they did recruit him. I think he's exactly what ASU needs in terms of a quick release, and we'll talk about maybe the not so great reasons why that is very important this year. He is somebody that even though he stands 6'5", 220, is much more athletic than people would give him credit to. Obviously, with that stature, being accurate with the deep ball and being able to throw a deep ball to begin with is not an issue. And I know we'll talk about it later on. The arsenal of weapons that he has around him, I think, almost makes it impossible for any quarterback, no matter what their name is, to fail at ASU. So I think Boley is definitely the right selection, and I think we saw it not only in fall camp, but it's the latter part of spring. He is definitely up to the task, and I know some people will maybe compare him to Sam Levitt, but I think he's coming to ASU a much more polished quarterback than Sam Levitt did when he did come to ASU back in 2024. So I think ASU fans should be okay with that selection, and I would be very surprised if the quarterback play at ASU would not be up to par because of that selection.
Yeah, I feel like what I like also is he got pushed. Mikey Keene pushed him. Jake Fette certainly had his moments. Like it's a healthy quarterback competition and healthy quarterback room, and you saw Cutter respond. And yes, there have been a couple not great throws throughout camp, but that's just being a human being and going up against a really good defense in fall camp. And I think that you didn't see too many days where those mistakes kind of snowballed. And they were pretty isolated incidents. And like Kenny said, earlier today, it was his best day of camp, and you saw him throwing that deep ball and the offense really moving, and it felt like things were kind of clicking after a few weeks of maybe struggles, again, going against a really good defense. But I've been very impressed with what Cutter's been able to do.
Now, I'm not out there, obviously, as much as this illustrious trio assembled here, but man, when I see him between the physical stature, some of the mechanics, like I'm really reminded of Brock Osweiler. There's some connection there, in my opinion, and to me, as long as he can still let it loose, because when you talk about those turnover issues, where you can't really talk about Cutter Boley without having somebody chime in about that topic. As long as that's not at the forefront of his mind, as long as he is not playing, not to lose, not playing not to turn the ball over in an overly cautious way. Because that's not going to work well for anybody. As long as he finds his rhythm to be himself and be the athlete that he is, while still being mindful of issues that could cause problems and preventing those, but not being so conservative that he's hamstringing himself. I think that's where you can find a nice middle ground for them to work with.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see because he's progressed, I think, noticeably through fall camp. And you mentioned, Jordan, today his first his birthday, but then also his best day at camp. And it was anybody who went up there to the Camp T scrimmage, like there was almost an entirely quick game, just everything getting out of the hands real quick. But we've seen since Camp T and since Kenny's comments, I think, have been kind of direct reaction to it, him taking more shots downfield. We saw the big touchdown to Cutter from Cutter to Reed Harris today. I thought he's taking more shots, but also being more judicious with that ball. As Kenny said, the Jeopardy balls have been way down over the last several weeks, and over the entirety of fall camp. So I feel more encouraged by what I've seen, and with the weapons around him. I just hope it's not a situation where we see, as we'll get to, the reasons why they might have to go more quick game heavy, because with the bevy of weapons around there, it's going to be super enticing for any quarterback in that system to have a lot of success. But if you're going entirely quick game, as I've having to suffer through the 2025 Steelers, you can't throw everything out in 1 second within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. You have weapons, you got to keep defenses honest. So it'll be interesting, but we'll see what Cutter's able to do. But Mikey Keene is a heck of a plan B. In terms of a veteran backup. And Joe, I know you said that you really like this plan of after the Jeff Sims blueprint of the last couple of years of having that that security blanket for the Devils.
Yeah, I think that is a great blueprint to follow every year. Find that guy, whether he's a local product like Keene or somebody else that is kind of in the twilight of their college career, that is okay battling for a position or even being a backup. I mean, it's just works so well. To have Jeff Sims, even though there were turnover issues there, I mean, that's a closed book at this point. He was still a major asset with this program, and things could have really slid away, if you're going to a much lesser experienced quarterback last season. So as you turn that page, yeah, if something were to happen, either injury-wise or, just by way of performance, a guy like Mikey Keene is a real good next man up to have, and even a Jake Fette. So I think that ASU, even though we're still kind of having this conversation about the quarterback and slight degrees of uncertainty of what we're going to get, at least the personnel there, I think you got to be really happy with, because we've seen this group in the past at ASU have your starter, and then you have no idea what you're dealing with, and even ones that didn't even have the recruiting chops of like a Jake Fette. So on the surface, again, at least the depth chart, the names and what they bring to the table is an encouraging thing. And if each guy can play to their potential, then that really lifts this team up.
Yeah, ASU is definitely not making a run and being in the conference title race till the literal last week of the season without a guy like Jeff Sims, and maybe Mikey Keene can be a guy that, if you need him for a couple games or a spell, as you mentioned, Cutter likes to take off and run and has that ability. So maybe he takes a ding here and there. But I think, Mikey Keene's a good security blanket to have. And Jordan, you've been, aware that he's been on your radar for a long time at this point, going back to his Chandler days.
Yeah, and he's a guy that's just been consistent as can be, and a guy that will process very quickly. I've heard coaches, very decorated coaches within the state, say in terms of processing, it's Mikey Keene and Trenton Bourget. That were the two best at that. So you can see those quick decisions. You can see those things. And look, going into this offseason, after Cutter Boley, there wasn't any snaps taken at the quarterback position in that room. So I think it was really important to have a guy that was okay with the role, okay with the competition, bring that wealth of experience, and help raise everybody in that room, himself, Cutter, and some of the young guys coming in as well. So he just brings a winning attitude. I know that's kind of cliche and corny, but it's a good way to describe what Mikey can bring in the locker room as well.
It definitely it has the makeup of the future coach. We
Totally.
saw Trenton Bourget, and I think that might be even a reason why Mikey's here. But I know a name that's got a lot of fans excited. Jake Fette. Maybe didn't win the competition outright here, but where do you see his role maybe this year and going forward? Because also Cutter's a young quarterback in his own right, just a redshirt freshman last year in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jake Fette can definitely make things much more interesting as far as the quarterback competition. This time next year. So Mikey Keene obviously exhausting his eligibility after this year, so it is really going to be a two-man race, I feel, between Jake Fette and Cutter Boley. So I would say even spring practice of next year, you just kind of wonder what the dynamic is really going to be between them. Like you said, Cutter Boley himself is not an old quarterback by any means. So the question is, does that make the race even a little more interesting? But Jake Fette is somebody who reminds folks of Sam Levitt, and I think remind of Sam Levitt, it's from the neck down, not from the neck up, and I'll leave it at that. But he definitely has a lot of tools in his toolbox. I thought the scrimmage last Saturday might have been his best performance in this entire preseason. I mean, some throws that you just don't expect freshmen to see. So that's going to be interesting. But just going back to the selection of Cutter Boley, I just feel that there were a lot of painful lessons learned from 2025 and how this offense really should not run. Not to belabor the point, I think the guy that was behind center definitely had a hand in things really not going according to plan and going off script in a very adverse way. Kenny Dillingham, as we know, is going to call plays this year. So whatever selection that he's going to have at quarterback, obviously, I think even takes even a deeper meaning as to Kenny Dillingham identifying, okay, this is a quarterback that can execute all the different philosophies and approaches I want to employ in 2026. So I think that also just the different approach that this team is going to have is also going to be an aspect that's going to be very important in Cutter Boley's success. And again, if the coaches felt like Cutter Boley is not able to execute that vision, I don't think he would have been named the starter.
All right, let's talk about the running backs, because whatever, with Cutter Boley and any quarterback back there, they got a deep backfield. But it seems like right now, as of this recording, we will have a running back by committee.
Finally.
We don't want to jinx it because we've said it a few times earlier with these deep and talented backfields in recent years. But the workload is going to be very fascinating to me, because I think right now we have Kyson Brown probably going to take that first handoff. After that, what's going to happen? Because there's several guys that have really flashed. I think Kyson relatively has had a fairly quiet fall camp. Jordan, I'll start with you. How do you see this running back group, working out in terms of just having a lot of mouths to feed, a lot of guys who have impressed, but nobody has taken that job and said, this is mine?
Every year we go, is it by committee this year? They're 6 deep. Is it by committee? And every year we've seen someone step up. I do feel like this is the case where it is the most by committee. I still am expecting Kyson to be the guy, like you said, the guy to get the first snaps. Certainly a guy that I think will get plenty of opportunity. But I really like the way that this group has worked together and the skill sets that they all bring together. You have Marquise Gillis, who's a little bit of a bigger back, but definitely has shown that pop. Man has had a couple runs that he's been able to break off. Carde Mack has really impressed as a freshman. You have David Avett. He just seems built for that third and short, that inside the 5, that sort of thing. So I think that there's a lot of guys, Jason Brown, Grayson Rigdon. So I feel like we will see kind of maybe some more situational football than what we've seen under Sean Aguano. But Coach Aguano has also said, like, there have been cases where running backs don't allow me to take them off the field because they're being so effective. So do I think that one of these guys could become that? Certainly. But it really does feel like this could be the bye commit. I don't want to say it because I feel like it's just like we're going to get burned again with that. But it does feel like certainly the most diverse group that they've had.
And what's interesting to me is like the versatility of the group, because those guys do certainly seem to fit into certain boxes. Like, oh, David Avett, the power back, and Jason Brown might be the speedster, but they're so versatile, and the way they've been using them in spring and fall has been very. I talked to David today, and he's like, "This is the first time I've ever ran routes," and like some of these guys have been receiver background and running because they're moving them in the slot. They're splitting them out wide. They're having 2 backs in the backfield, and so it's got to be really fun if you're Kenny Dillingham and Marcus Arroyo and Sean Aguano to devise different ways to utilize this diverse group.
Yeah, I mean, I think David Avett, to your point, Brad, is maybe the most fascinating running back because he came in as a one-trick pony, and then you see him at practice. He's running routes just fine. He's not only bouncing on the outside; he can get some yards between tackles. So he's definitely one of the more fascinating, I think, running backs in this group. To answer your question, who's going to be the second running back after Kyson Brown? I just had my eye on Marquise Gillis ever since he announced his arrival to Tempe. I got to talk to his running back coach, Clinton Portis, obviously a former University of Miami running back, also played in the NFL several years, and he just talked about him really in glowing terms, and I think that's a big measure of credibility. So I would be surprised if Marquise Gillis wouldn't be the number 2 running back, so to speak, in this running back by committee. Who's going to be number 3? Yeah. I think I'm a little lost over there. If it is going to be David Avett, could it be Jason Brown? But even guys like Demaris Man Robinson and Grayson Rigdon, I think, has really come on strong. Again, we talk about that Saturday scrimmage. Grayson Rigdon came out of nowhere. I mean, we actually did an interview with him after, and one of the snarky comments, and I think this guy was actually, really being serious about it. How come he interviewing the 7th stringer on the team or something? And I said, well, if you saw the scrimmage I saw, I don't know if you would call him a 7th stringer. So I know maybe people are sick about hearing how great this running back room is and how much talent there is, but there's really no other way to describe it. I mean, there is quite a bit of diverse running styles and just a really a deep pool of talent in that room. I think that once you get into Big 12 play or even the Texas A&M game, the rotation is probably going to be more like 4 running backs. But against Morgan State in the season opener, I expect to see all 7 of them play, and I'm excited to see it.
That 7th-string running back got first-team reps today. So it's like
there you go.
And like that's been the consistent theme is like all these guys are getting opportunities, and for the most part, all of them are flashing at one point or another.
Mm-hmm. And if it is a by committee thing, I mean that is not a bad deal.
Sure.
Not at all.
If it's not like they say if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one kind of thing. I mean, this is a group where obviously you can use different people on the field at the same time, get them involved in different roles. You look back to last year, and obviously Malik Brown had a great year. He was a first-team all-conference. Mm-hmm. But there were some highs and lows. I mean, there were 200-yard games and there were 50 to 60-yard games. There were defenses that he could really exploit, and there were some that maybe not necessarily had their way with him, but he just didn't have as strong a day. So if you have a more diverse approach that you can take, depending on what the defense is giving you and what their strengths and weaknesses are, you can feature guys that can go against that. So it would be, a really unique thing. In the Huddle on Devil's Digest, we're kind of calling back some of the, recent groups or groups this century where ASU had any kind of depth at running back, and there have only been, a select few cases where there have been multiple players or 3 players that have 100 or more carries, if you want to put a number on it, as far as like something that constitutes a by committee approach. So we'll see how this stacks up. Does feel like what we talked about at tight end for years and years about this is going to be the year of the tight end. So yeah, we're all kind of a little shell shocked on that sort of thing. So we'll see how it pans out. But everything makes sense. I mean, they have a great deal of talent. They brought in, a couple players with fairly limited eligibility remaining. And also to the point of, it didn't seem like there was one particular guy like a Kyson Brown who would be kind of the incumbent that is, literally running away with it. So when you put that all together in a pot, the outcome just makes sense for it to be, again, a by committee thing. But that isn't such a bad deal.
All right, let's move on to wide receiver. And here we have another deep and talented group of players, but perhaps a little more clarity in terms of like some dudes. And Omari Miller and Reed Harris are legitimate certifiable dudes. And then it's like, who's the next wave? Like, you got Jalen Moss and Raiden Vines-Bright. That could be some serious dudes in that slot as well. We've been talking in recent weeks about Jalen Moss and Jaron Hamilton really having strong fall camps, really solidifying their position as well. Ryan Nellums continues to have a tremendous fall camp. So there's a lot of guys here at this wide receiver spot, and we talked about it at the quarterback spot. Just get them the ball. And in a lot of ways, that we've seen the play calling kind of reflect that. A lot of screens, a lot of quick game, a lot of quick just ways to get the ball into these playmakers' hands very quick. But this group, to me, is going to be absolutely exciting and fun to watch all season long.
Yeah, basically, I mean, people may have a hard time believing that you lost Jordan Tyson, one of the best receivers, to ever play this century in Tempe, and still the wide receiver group not only did not lose a step, but was actually better collectively than it was last year, and better than it was even in 2024, I would say. But like you said, Brad, there's just like running back, there's just so many names that you can point to that have shown you more than a few flashes in fall camp. And I just feel, again, just the approach of how this passing game is going to work compared to last year, with all the attributes that you did mention, I think that's also really going to make a huge difference. There's not that drop off like you saw last year after Jordan Tyson. Okay, who's going to be the number 2, number 3 wide receiver? I just feel like maybe after Reed Harris and Omari Miller, there's some kind of step level that you're going to go down, but it's not as deep as a Grand Canyon or anything like that. I mean, it's pretty, I would say, modest step. So yeah, I think with all the talent that you have at wide receiver, you're really going to able to accomplish what you weren't really able to accomplish last year, and spread the ball. I mean, that just seemed like an absolute oxymoron in the ASU offense last year. There's no way Kenny Dillingham was letting that happen this year. And again, he does have all the tools at his disposal. He has strong enough of a running game to not to over rely on the passing game. So there's a lot of things I think that are lining up for this passing game to be really, really special.
And I don't think it's a big exaggeration to say not only can this group, but this group should be among the very best wide receiver groups that ASU has had in our lifetimes. Mm-hmm. I mean, realistically speaking, when you look at what these players have already done at the college level, what we can predict that they'll continue to do at the college level, and what some of them may do beyond the college level, I mean, there is some incredible stuff here. And, I've given the example before, and Sun Devil fans are not going to like it, but, when we're talking about how do you lose Jordan Tyson but you still improve year over year, the direct comparison is the conversation we had last year when ASU is headed into the Territorial Cup game. I mean, how in the world do you lose McMillan, who had an incredible rookie season in the NFL, but get better at wide receiver? Mm-hmm. It's when you get more depth, and you're not necessarily just having that one guy to key on. So this group, there really are no limits to what they can accomplish. I mean, this is a unit that should be able to be, again, among the very, very best that this program has possibly ever produced, which, again, puts some pressure and responsibility on some other positions, like we've talked about time and time again. The quarterback position, just literally get the ball out of your hands and into their hands. That's all you got to do.
And credit to Kenny Dillingham, this coaching staff, the financial side of it, to go into the transfer portal. You knew you were losing Sam Levitt. You knew you had to replace Jordan Tyson. You went and got 3 dudes at the wide receiver position, and you got Cutter Boley. And that was in like the first, it felt like 4 or 5 days of the portal. Like, they had a plan and they executed. And they said, we need more of these top flight guys to come in and pair with some of these younger receivers who I think are really talented. And I'm sure we'll talk about some of them. But you come in and there was zero hesitation with this group. You could see the vision of it coming together a couple days into the portal. And like you said, you also have Uriah Nellums, Corey Butler Jr. Both of those guys are sophomores that are just coming up. So you can see just like the magnetism that like Hines Ward has in this, whether it's prep recruiting or transfers, to go out and get guys, get highly intelligent guys as well to go out and really execute at a really high level.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed Corey Butler. He's been so good in all fall camp, and another layer of depth. So I mean, there's only one ball and only so many mouths to feed. But that's a good problem as an offense to have. Some of those guys can return or can play a factor in the return game as well. Jalen Moss looks like he's going to be the primary punt returner. Hamilton handled some kick off duties last year, and maybe they'll do so again this year. But it just credit that Josh Amura, the GM, the caponomics of fitting making this roster come together. But yeah, this is going to be super fascinating to see because you have all these weapons, and maybe you don't have a 1,000-yard receiver and the guy with 75 plus catches. And you maybe are better offense because you have multiple guys with 40, 50, 60 catches.
Going back to Joe's point, you look at the season stats for U of A last year. None of those lines are that eye popping, but they could move the ball, and I think I think that's a really good comparison.
Yeah, ultimately, putting double-digit wins is the best stat of all.
Yeah.
It's the only time I'll accept like a compliment where the U of A is involved in something that I said, but I still appreciate it. It warms my heart.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another pass catching position that let's say maybe on the entire end of the spectrum, but has struggled mightily in recent weeks. It's the tight end group. Of course, Kamari Anderson is still working his way back from an injury, and that has been very, very noticeable, gentlemen. We talked about it last week, Joe. Just this group has really struggled to make an impact. They were under fire from Kenny. Was the last Tuesday practice. Early last week, the worst practice maybe any position group has had in the entirety of fall camp. Really struggling. Not getting a whole lot better as of yet. However, we did see some encouraging signs today with Kamari doing some individual position work. That presence is sorely needed. Doesn't seem like we will see as many 12 personnel packages as we did last year. Just kind of how things are going. But they got to play. This is an offense that has key roles for tight ends. But how are we feeling right now about 10 days out from the opener with this position?
Honestly, with tight end, Brad, it's a huge TBD. It's really easy to say, they're going to fall flat on their face. They're going to be a liability all season long. To me, that's a long-hanging fruit prediction. But you don't want to be like really over-optimistic until Kamari Anderson does come back. Sure, he could come back maybe as early as the Texas A&M game. I think it just might be the Kansas game in London that we're going to first see him on the field. We'll see what happens. To me, it's just disappointing because you guys remember in spring practice, it's only the Kamari Anderson I thought had an outstanding spring practice. I thought the chemistry between him and Carter Boley was amazing. But it was one of, what's the saying?
Kentucky connection.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right?
But, what's that say? A tide raises all boats. Or
Everybody
whatever.
used to say to me when I would cheer against the other teams in the Pac-12. And the high something.
It's about the karma, Joe.
Exactly.
Just give compliments to U of A, and just all that. It might come back and pay dividends. But it almost feels like, Kamari Anderson had such a great spring. I thought Anthony Miller, the transfer from Tulane, had a real solid spring, and fall camp, poof, disappeared. AJE definitely showed, okay, here's the growth of that we're all expecting and everything during the spring, and fall camp, just absolutely, just not there. And it's not just, not being able to be part of the passing game, but it's that they're blocking, and it's such a damn shame because, here we are talking about a great running back group. Well, the interior of the offensive line, I know we'll talk about it in a few minutes. It's fine. It can definitely open the gaps for the running backs, and we've seen it all fall camp. But even the tight ends, just the basic blocking assignments, they're just not executing. I feel that Kenny Dillingham shook him up privately and also publicly, like you said, Brad, and maybe somehow they can turn the corner. But I agree 1,000,000%. Until Kamari Anderson comes back, and hopefully he'll come back in really top form, we're not going to see the tight ends as an integral part of the passing game. And maybe the flip side of it, you have such a great running back group. Why don't you go ahead and go crazy with formations with that two running backs in alignment if the tight ends are really not going to be that productive in the offense. But it's just a huge mystery what kind of tight end group we're going to see. And again, you just hope Kamari Anderson is just that answer to all these burning questions that are right now, I feel like, burning a hole in this offense.
So far right now, I feel like of the tight ends, James Giggy's probably had the most consistent fall camp.
Yeah.
Talking to Jason Mons, and no slight to Giggy, I mean, he's going to be a core special teams player and probably have some roles to play, and he's a key part. But he's not necessarily a guy that you necessarily are thinking is going to be a top 2 guy at that position heading into this year. But his performance has been that right now, and that's kind of saying, Anthony Miller has not been a factor at all. Looking like an NFL defensive end. AJE is, I don't say regress, but he's definitely kind of struggled more in fall than he had in spring. Had some flashes, I saw some chemistry developing, but that one practice in particular, a couple bad drops, some missed blocks. Still a very young player and heading into his second year, but this is a group that needs to figure something out fast, because it certainly can't fall just solely on the hopes of a healthy Kamari Anderson.
And what's odd about it is that you feel like they've created a group of personnel that on paper you're happy with.
Yeah.
This is a position group that there's quite a bit of confidence going into spring ball. Jason Mons and the others and what they've done, including the true freshmen, including the transfers, whether it's from FCS or Tulane, wherever it may be. You looked at it on paper, it's like, okay, this makes sense. Kamari Anderson's a guy with some athleticism. AJ the thought and the hope is like, okay, some bumps and bruises year 1, so that's freshman stuff. You get into year 2, that skill set is going to shine, what made him a 4-star recruit. And so I think that is a little, unnerving, but you can't really – it's not a poorly equipped group. We've seen poorly equipped groups at that position group to where it's like, okay, it makes sense that they're going to combine for about 6 or 7 catches. I caught myself on that one there too. But in any event, it's a group that hopefully – it's one of those deals where the lights go on and just a different sort of switch is flipped and the game steps up, but there really isn't too much that's leaning to that direction at this point.
Yeah, if I'm somebody in this room, I'm looking these next 10 days are an opportunity. When you're taking a defensive end and putting them in your position group, that's an urgency that Kenny is trying to create. And Clayton Smith, credit to him to have that versatility and that athletic ability to bounce around. And we saw him after practice today getting extra work at setting the tone. What we've seen all fall camp with the defensive ends, now it's with the tight. It's him and James Giggy working, and you see Kamari staying back and Anthony Miller staying back and catching extra balls. But it's got to translate on the field. And I think there is a really good opportunity here for somebody to step up even before Kamari gets back from his injury. So, they got to say that this was a bit of a surprise to see how fall camp is shaken up, but no one's going to remember that if all of a sudden the fire gets lit and when the games start counting, they're hitting those blocks and everything. And, you go from last year, like we talked about with the heavy 12 personnel. Without wide receiver group, you're probably not going to see a ton of 12 unless it's out of necessity. So, who's going to be the one that's going to go grab that opportunity?
Yeah, it remains to be seen, because that's definitely a role that is critical to this offense, the scheme, this philosophy. Tight end is a quarterback's best friend, as the old proverb goes. But someone's got to make some friendly overtures here pretty soon. All right, so let's talk some offensive line. Another group that I have some concern with. And we've seen, I think it's almost like a tale of two lines. You mentioned, the interior you feel pretty good about. You got Makai Stewart, a rising star at left guard, Tana Olatupo'ola at the center spot, and Rob Lapuaho is really kind of starting to get into a groove at that right guard spot, I think picking up a little bit from his spring momentum there. Tackles are a little bit different situation. Champ Westbrooks was running with the ones for most of fall camp. Then since Camp Tonizona, Luke Baklenko has moved from right tackle to the second team, the first team. And then some other guys have been dinged up a little bit. Charmaine Mitchell, of course, got dinged in spring. His development curve has been a little bit slow. At that practice or the scrimmage on Saturday, the pass rush had a field day. Sound like and even today the pass rush our pass protection was suffering a little bit. So it's like you feel better on the inside than the outside, but man, without good tackle play against this schedule, things get scary quick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to offer an excuse, but rather an explanation that I know mentioned on Jermaine Mitchell, but also Champ Westbrooks. They really have been dealing with injury issues all the way back in spring practice, and that really hurt them quite a bit coming into fall camp, because I'm not convinced that they were 100% even coming into fall camp to begin with. And obviously, it's a huge blow. I mean, Jermaine Mitchell, not only the number one offensive tackle in the junior college class of 2026, but the number one prospect overall in the junior college class. He was obviously brought in to be the starter at left tackle. I mean, let's not, spin that in any other way. So the fact that he not only cannot be the starter at this point, but like barely, on the two deep, that's really disappointing. But like you said, Brad, it's just like when you're a newcomer and you're not healthy to begin with, that really makes that learning curve quite a vicious one. And Chap Westbrook's, I mean, a young player who has really all the potential in the world, but again, just hampered by that injury and not being able to follow that gradual path of development to be that everyday starter at left tackle. Jalen Clem and Luke Blenko, they're just serviceable offensive tackles. And maybe the best combination in my eyes would be actually Chap Westbrooks maybe at right tackle and Jermaine Mitchell at left tackle. I think in terms of their overall athleticism and combination of strength and speed are probably the best two players to put over there. But if their health is not going to allow it, then it's not going to allow it. And again, another thing I'll file under not an excuse but an explanation, and I know we're going to talk about that in a minute. These defensive ends at ASU, I mean, they're nasty. I mean, as great as they were last year, and there's quite the group, to look at. Prince Dorba, Justin Watley, Elijah O'Neal, the defensive ends that they brought in from the portal, and just the overall depth is really, really impressive, and that is not making it easy for this offensive tackle position to show some kind of development, some kind of hope. Not having a good tight end group, that obviously hurts quite a bit. But like you said, Brad, if you're not going to have at least average offensive tackles when the season starts, that can spell a lot of trouble. And again, it just goes under that, damn shame when you have a good quarterback like Cutter Boley. You have so many great weapons at his disposal. But if Cutter Boley's not going to get adequate, and now that's like the lowest bar you can talk about, adequate pass protection, it's really going to be all for naught. So just like tight ends, just a huge TBD if this offensive tackle position can somehow improve and really not become the obvious liability that they are today on August 25th.
This is a coaching staff that has proven that they will adjust on the fly and play to the strengths of what they have. Swinging gate in 2023. Right. The QB run game with Jeff Sims a season ago, and we hinted at it earlier, talking about the quarterbacks of just the necessity that maybe this quick game that we've seen through spring and fall is maybe a product of some of the issues at offensive line. But I do agree. I think Clem and Mitchell and Westbrooks are probably the two highest ceiling guys on this line. And of course, Champ saw most of his time at right tackle, has been playing and switched to left predominantly here in fall camp. But yeah, there's something that has been kind of health wise askew, because some of the stuff that he's given up is like, this is not kind of the Champ that we've seen. So hopefully that can the health can or can get better. That's no longer a factor. We don't have a repeat of recent years where that line gets banged up, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, there's no excuses ultimately on Saturdays, and so this is a group and a coaching staff that hopefully is able to rebound here pretty quick.
And it's such a delicate balance, I think, for the coaching staff, because it's very clear that Kenny Dillingham feels responsible for the shortcomings of last year because he felt like he took the foot off the gas with practice. This has been one of the most intense fall camps that I think we've seen in quite some time. But also when your guys are banged up, how do you navigate that? And how do you push through and try to build up that toughness that you're going to need throughout the year, but clearly some of the guys aren't right. So how do you figure that out? So I think that might be a product of it a little bit. Like Hode said, like they might just be thrilled not to have to go up against their defense once the season actually starts, because the defense really has won the day most of the days. And that's not all that out of the ordinary, throughout a fall camp. But it really is you're going to have to figure things out quickly, maybe adjust on the fly, and have guys get right pretty quick, both health wise and mental mindset wise.
And you talk about this group having a lot of talent on the interior line positions and a lot of question marks on the tackles. You almost kind of wonder if things are going to get to like that Dennis Erickson era level of moving guys inside to tackle positions just basically by necessity. And the best way I can sum it up is it's just the most concern. If you're talking offensive tackle specifically, not necessarily the whole O line, but tackle specifically, the most concerning position group on the roster, and that's not a good position to be the most concerning on the roster. And when you couple that with tight end and having blocking issues there, then that really puts your whole protection scheme into question. And kind of as has been mentioned, nothing can chop down a really talented offense as far as skill players are concerned by having major question marks in protection. And that can be a frustrating slope if it starts to get a little slippery. Not to go all emo on things and assume the absolute worst, but it is going to be one of the major things folks who are in the know are going to be keeping an eye on in these early games.
All right, so let's go from a position in which that I've lost a little confidence through fall camp to one that I've gained a tremendous amount of confidence in, defensive line. Especially, I had a lot of questions, I think, in our fall camp preview about the edges and just what are we going to see from them? A lot of new faces, Clayton Smith coming back a little bit. I've been very impressed. I thought after kind of a relatively quiet spring, Jalen Thompson and Marion Winston have really kicked up. Julian Hugo's been a revelation. When he's been healthy, Albert Smith has been explosive out there. Roman Petrie, it looks like he's going to be a dude there as well. So good does this coaching staff feel that they were saying, hey, Clayton, go help the tight ends.
Yeah.
Kind of the Winston Wolf of the roster. Just go to this position group, that position group, help them out. But yeah, and then of course interior you got CJ Fite locking things down a little bit. I still have some depth issues or questions about tackle, but I've been encouraged by what I see from guys like Zach Swanson, Jeffrey Mans, Hiram Vayono, Blazing Lone Wong, and just kind of that rock solid group. But I'm feeling good about the other side of the trench. A lot more than I am offensively.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. You said you didn't know how this defensive end position is going to come along. If you remember during the transfer portal, people were asking where are the defensive ends, because I think a day or two before the portal closed, that's when Amarian Winston came from Baylor. And if you recall, Amarian Winston came this close to actually becoming a Sun Devil before the 2025 season. And then Jalen Thompson comes from Michigan State, has that history with Daron Reynolds, the defensive line coach. So you have two really significant transfers coming in, and now we have the development of guys like Albert Smith, like Roman Petrie, really came out of nowhere. And I mean, how many practices has he not run with the first team? I mean, very, very few and far in between. Then Julian Hugo, like you said, a freshman that people in the program told me there's two freshmen that you really need to look out for, and they told me that even before spring practice. Actually, told me that during the Sun Bowl. They said Julian Hugo and Taquan Dunn. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, in a few minutes. The cornerback. They said watch out for those two freshmen because they're really going to make an impact their first year. And so far, I mean, I know the season hasn't kicked off yet, but so far in the preseason, that definitely has been the case. So yeah, I mean, this defensive end group really has been eye-popping in how effective they can be. Of course, you have the caveat: the offensive tackle position for ASU has not been right in fall camp, so maybe this is really easy pickings for this defensive end to have quite the practice each and every session. But nonetheless, this is a very, very talented group. Inside, I really feel great, about the two junior college transfers, Manza and Vanel, Blazing Lona Wong, Zach Swanson, wily veterans that have each contributed in their own way. Zach Swanson, you just hope he's going to stay healthy, because remember in 2024, quietly or not, the second half of that season, he was absolutely outstanding. I mean, I think in that game against Utah, he had like almost double-digit tackles. That for a defensive tackle, that's really almost unheard of. And obviously CJ Fite, the star of not only this defensive line, but maybe the entire defense, arguably. So there's a lot to be excited about this front four, and I think if you have a great front four, it just creates a great domino effect for the rest of the defense, and that's why I think this defensive unit as a whole is ever going to be one of the best ones we've seen in Tempe this century.
It's really telling after practices who the leaders are, because it's really cool to see like the meeting of the minds that happens with the defensive line, where it's Jalen Thompson, Winston, CJ Fite, Clayton Smith, and they are going through the nittiest of the grittiest of the details of, well, if you do this, then I can swim in here and I can do this. And like, think of how many college games those four have played, and they're still just trying to build upon it. And if there's a young player on that roster, like, that's gotta resonate with them of like, this is the type of stuff that I have to do because these are four of the best players on the defense on this team, and they're going in on that. And I think that's why this defensive line has been such a pleasant surprise in terms of not really knowing how it's all going to mesh, and you had to replace so much from last year. And it feels like they really haven't missed a beat. And they have a bunch of really talented guys, but high character guys too, and guys that will lead and bring this younger group along as they continue to get experience.
It's really cool to see like Lee Fatano giving them the insight from the offensive line. I've talked to some of the D linemen. It's like, oh, the things we're picking up is just like, oh, so the offensive line, that's what they're going to be doing. So like they get, the counters and everything. Like, so it's really cool to have that insight as well, of course. And then also learning from Dyron Reynolds and Vince Amy. It's like, this is, and then those veterans like this, the youngsters in that room are treated well.
Totally.
And on the interior line, I mean, you feel real good about that position group, especially if you can stay healthy, and especially at the top there. And at the edges, I mean, the standard was raised considerably last year because ASU, look at the sack total, and obviously that integrated other positions as well. ASU increased its sack total year over year from 2024 to 2025 by double-digit sacks, and that's playing one fewer game than they did. So the seasons, the going out on a high note that you saw from Justin Watley, Elijah O'Neal, guys who had real solid years, you're hoping that kind of trend can continue because even some of the edges that they acquired through the transfer portal, although they're very experienced, the sack numbers career-wise are pretty modest. Not to say that can't increase this year. So you want to see a little bit, that trajectory continue to go up because that was pretty much like the only real criticism we had in 2024 on this team was the pass rush just wasn't that great. Quite literally everything else made up for it, but that would be a major, major plus if you can see some of these, senior veteran defensive ends have the seasons of their lives.
Yeah, it's going to be real fun to see, and that may not be an 8-sack guy in this roster, but you might not need one. You might have a bunch of guys getting 4, 5, 6.
Well, and it's also telling Vince Amy a shirt that is in the rotation for him and some of the other assistant coaches, 4 equals 1. And that's something they embraced last year, where it's a group pass rush. It's not one guy nabbing 12 sacks. It's if they can get that pressure as a collective, then they can get those necessary sacks or create those pressures. And they've really embraced it that now it's literally on their backs as they're going through practice.
And they might, as we'll touch on in a couple minutes, they might also have the benefit of a good secondary, buying them some extra time to get to the quarterback. All right, let's talk about a room that has typically been one of the defense's strongest, but it's now going to be having to do their job a little shorthanded. The linebackers lost today. Zyrus Fiaseu for the season. Unfortunately, suffered an injury on Saturday. It's just such a bummer. I mean, he came back with the medical waiver for another year. One of those heart and soul type of guys. Who was going to see a lot of playing time as the first linebacker off the bench. Speedy recovery for Zyrus, but ultimately, this is still a room that is led by some dudes. AJ Cooper has got the Werewolves ready to go. Owen Long perhaps is as impressive spring and fall camp as from a newcomer that I've seen in years. Martell Hughes has been just so good as well. But then, with Zyrus out, we were talking about all season long, the top three, you have those veterans. You need just like a young guy to step up. Well, now you need a couple of those younger guys to step up. Some good candidates, but still losing Zyrus is going to hurt. But you got a good starting two, but then some questions.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that maybe there's some questions just because there's not a lot of proven players at the Big 12 level. And if you want to be honest, even Owen Long is not proven at a Power 4 conference level. But obviously the way he's played in the spring and fall camp, I mean, there's no reason to think that he can't produce very big numbers. Maybe not 151 tackles, but coming pretty close to triple-digit tackles during the 2026 seasons. But when you talk about the reserves, I mean, I've been very, very impressed with Ramir Davis from NAU, who had a great season with Lumberjacks last year, and kudos to ASU really stealing one from an in-state rival, kinda. I mean, I think that's a really good move by the Sun Devils. Prairie Young Black Goat, I think one of those players who quietly made a huge jump from last year to this year. Somebody who was running for a good number of practices with the second team. So I think that's somebody that you want to keep your eye on. The biggest pleasant surprise, is Tristan Bacon, a local guy who's been outstanding in fall camp. And then you got, Lee Puka Fuimano, Isaiah Safea. So I think there's good talent there, on the second and maybe even the third team for that matter, to maybe collectively can really compensate for the loss of Azaris Fiaseo. But, linebacker is a group that Kenny always says, I don't have to worry about them. On the field, off the field, they just get the job done, no drama. And I think that's really going to be more of the same with two outstanding starters, but also I think a pretty good supporting cast.
AJ Cooper, I think, is one of the most underrated coaches for what he produces year in, year out. In terms of they just get the job done, just new faces, but just every year better and better production. And you mentioned Tristan Bacon's a guy that I think is about on the verge of breaking out. My estimation of him coming in is kind of that guy who had a first year kind of learning to not be a wrestler out on the football field, but then like AJ Cooper coaching him up on just using. Well, actually, some of those things actually translate really well, and he is just thumping dudes out there. I am super excited to see him now have that opportunity. Is probably maybe being that third backer.
He feels like Martell Hughes from a couple of years ago, where you just see you get this guy enough snaps, like he is going to make an impact. And it was unfortunately a constant in football are injuries or guys being unavailable and grabbing that opportunity. And Martell certainly has done that. We've seen a more expanded role, and he has probably big expectations this year. I think Zyrus being around the program is still going to be really important for a lot of these young guys to get up and going. But like a lot of the guys that you talked about, I feel good, and you took the words right out of my mouth, Brad, in terms of AJ Cooper, just the silent assassin that, even in the first year, he didn't necessarily have the numbers, but that linebacker group overachieved so much compared to probably what the expectation was.
Tate Romney
was a legitimate player.
Yeah. And in terms of numbers, they got bit by the injury bug too, so they were just kind of trying to figure it out, but you just find this production everywhere. And Owen Long, it's interesting, when I first saw him in Tempe, I was like, he's a little smaller than I thought. I thought he was kind of going to be, this big guy, tough getting through hallways and stuff like that. And I was like, he's a little smaller than I thought. And then I watched him hit someone, and I was like, it doesn't matter. The lack of size just means he's a faster missile on the field. So and all he has done is impressed each and every day at camp. So I think that they're in a really good spot.
I just remember him in those 3 consecutive spring practices.
Yeah.
Each one it's almost like a copy paste of just him just laying out a tight end, and I think it was Ia, Kamari, and then Anthony Miller, the 3 biggest
large human beings,
and just obliterated them.
Yeah,
one each day. I think 1 or 2 resulted in an interception because the ball just got knocked. But I'm just this is this. I don't care that he's going from a G6 to power cut. This guy is a dude.
Yeah,
and AJ Cooper is kind of like the defensive Sean Aguano in my estimation, to where, all right, he has earned the right to be trusted. Mm-hmm. And if there are question marks, if there are injuries, if there are young players where you don't know quite what you have, that you feel confident that they're going to put it together. And those top 2, I mean, if Owen Long and Martell Hughes can stay healthy and just stay on track with the trajectory that's in front of them, I mean, that can be a really, really exciting and dynamic group. You're talking about Owen Long just laying some hat on everybody that's around him. Martell Hughes is someone that, it's easy to be high on him, and I've been high on him, pretty much since his arrival. Just been a straight up playmaker for him to get increased reps. And if the absence of Fiaseo, as much of a bummer as that is, because that's the common denominator of some of these injuries between a guy like Fiaseo, a guy like Mykel Gardner. I mean, ones that have missed just consecutive years of time, and that's really just heartbreaking for those athletes. But if that absence creates an opportunity for someone like Bacon, to really take the baton, hopefully his trajectory can continue as well. So again, it's a group they expect to be very, very strong, and that top tandem, again, if they reach their potential, could be among the very best in the conference.
All right, let's talk about corner. This is a group that, of course, produced an NFLer in Keith Abney, who seems to be doing pretty well with the Lions so far. Javen Robinson's now a Wisconsin Badger, so you're losing two starters, two multi-year starters for your defense. But this, I think, has a chance to be a better overall cornerback group. Ashton Stamps has been, I think, a legitimate top, lockdown dude so far, which is no easy task. We're talking about the matchups in camp, covering ASU's wide receivers, hard to do. And he's done a pretty good job. Rodney Bimage is on the verge of a breakout, and you mentioned him a little bit ago. Daquan Dunn, the true freshman, hasn't taken a snap yet in college, but looks like he could be a serious contributor this year. I've been really impressed with Caleb Chester. This is a group that, again, I had some questions coming into spring and fall. All of a sudden, these guys are starting to fill me with some confidence.
Yeah, when you talk about the offensive struggles that I think have been a good portion of fall camp, I think the secondary, and we'll talk about the safeties too, have really been responsible to that, because I feel that the running game hasn't really faltered really all that much when you compare it to the passing game. But there have been some practices. Passing game really has done close to nothing. Sure, offensive tackles going against great defensive ends, that's always going to be part of the equation. But when you just have lockdown corners, and it's really, like you said, not only the starters, but a guy like Daquan Dunn and Caleb Chester, who I think made a big jump from the spring. That's really the reason. So I just feel that, they're really, really in good shape there with the corners. And I know you kind of stole my thunder, but I was going to say that a lot of the success of the defensive ends is because the corners are really holding down those wide receivers. And like I said, it's not an easy task. And I almost feel like a lot of games are going to be easy for this cornerback group, because they're not going to have Reed Harris and Amar Miller running routes over there, for 4 quarters. I mean, the caliber wide receivers they're about to encounter, by and large, is not going to be at the level of the wide receivers they see every day in practice. So there's a lot to be excited about this cornerback group. Like I said, Rodney Bimage, we saw a lot of flashes last year, and this year definitely could be a year where you can take it to the next level. Ashton Stamps, it's almost too easy, like Owen Long. He put up great numbers. You feel like, okay, yeah, he's going to kick butt at ASU, and sure enough, he does it. So, some transfers, when they really play up to the resume, if you will, that makes life a lot easier. So, yeah, cornerback group looking in great shape in the preseason.
It is unfortunate, though. I should mention that Nigel Pringle suffering the season in an injury during his time at Camp Tonazona. He looked like a guy who, the last couple weeks, had maybe make a push for one of Chester or Dunn's jobs, but unfortunately he's going to be out of the Arkansas transfer. But still, a pretty promising group. Yeah,
and last year's group, by no means did they lack confidence, but I feel like with this year's group, there's a different swagger to this group. And Bimage is in practice, it's so fun to watch him go up against anybody, and even if he gets beat, it's he is going to make this hell for you to try to go get this football. And Ashton Stamps brings that same sort of swagger, and I think a lot of it probably comes from Coach Meat, and just the intensity, and you guys are going to make life very difficult for opponents, so let's go get after it. So I like the mental makeup of this group. They're going to face some really good passing offenses this year, but they just seem mentally ready to just go get after it.
Yeah, and that swagger is Daquan Dunn, after he made that pick of Mikey Keene in the Camp T scrimmage, he ran by sideline and had some confidence. Is not lacking.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And I think
but you want that.
Yeah, and you can make some comparisons to the year-over-year changes with the cornerback group, similar to wide receiver. Okay, you lose your NFL draft pick, you lose Keith Abney, a guy who played the position as well as anybody has in the last few decades here at ASU. How do you feel like you can get better? But I feel like the conversation about cornerbacks right now is a little bit more positive than it was last year. I think there's a bit you can dissect about Javen Robinson last season, but Rodney Bimage making his way, up the ranks. Talking about Ashton Stamps and really reclaiming that 2024 mold that he had at LSU with double-digit, PBUs in the SEC. So again, it could be a group that might have the potential to be an improved group year over year, even though you lose, again, one of the best players you've had at the position in quite some time.
All right, safety, another very deep group, and of course, I should say the brief flirtation of Ghost Rouser coming back, and not ruling that's over. He's now a Houston Cougar. But that's fine because this is a group that I thought didn't really need him as much as that's weird to say because it's really loaded. Lyric Rawls has been as advertised since he got here in spring. Montana Warren has really stepped up in year 4. Josiah McGrew, I'll maybe let you guys really go into detail there. That's a guy who should start. Boogie Wilson is a guy who's starting experience and has been really good as well. And some other guys we'll dive into, but this is a group that is so deep, I think, with playmakers, and has been really impressive. And in concert with the corner, this secondary should be better than last year. And last year was a good secondary.
Yeah, you always talk about that cliche about having the good headache of like who the heck I'm going to play. Brian Carrington, the defensive pass coordinator, said, I love that good headache, and he should. Because whatever lineup you're going to have on there, it's never going to be the lesser of two evils. We got Lyric Walls who can play both free and strong. Josiah McGrew is really more of a free, and that's it. Montana Warren obviously can play both strong and nickel. Boogie Wilson can play both free and nickel. Kyle McDonald can play both free and nickel. So there's a lot of pieces that you're going to go move around. And no disrespect to Ghost Rouser, but I don't know if he really would have a spot on this team. I mean, why? Why would you bring him, on this team when you're so loaded at safety? And again, it goes back to the success of the defensive end group because the safeties, along with the corners, do a great job locking down in coverage and giving that group extra time to wreak havoc in the backfield. But in terms of the combination, I have a feeling that Josiah McGrew, and again, we all think said it probably like 10 times since fall camp started, you can't take him off the field.
Yeah.
Let him start at free. Put Lyric Walls at strong because he can perform just as well as he can at free safety. I think Montana Warren, I know a lot of people, especially my subscribers, wondering, what about the nickel? Montana Warren has been fine, okay? Yeah. I do not see slot receivers or tight ends running amok, with the route for 10, 20 yards on the regular. And usually that's because your nickel back is doing the job that's expected of him. And again, if Montana Warren, can't perform, and there's no reason to think why he can't, but Boogie Wilson, I think in nickel last year was not a bad option to have. So it's kind of crazy how Boogie Wilson was one of the defensive standouts last year, and he can find himself as a reserve this year just because the depth is so great at safety. So, just like the linebacker group, just like the defensive line group, there's a lot of nice tools in the toolbox that can really serve this ASU team quite well.
I think it's really telling that Lyric Rawls is on the Pat Tillman Leadership Council, yep. And he's a newcomer, and he's the only one of that group that's a newcomer. McGrew, I feel like, has been the biggest surprise on this defense, but positively, of just like every single day he's making a big play. And even, we have certainly talked about guys that are going to see the field a ton and that sort of thing. Kyle McDonald, there are times he forces you to notice him with the hits that he delivers, with the plays that he's making, the passes that he's breaking up. This is a group that I think really also feeds off each other's success and can be, with that versatility, it can be some mixing and matching here based on what the scenario is and that sort of thing, where a lot of guys can just jump into different roles throughout a practice or a game.
There might be some work to do for this group to be, at least the starting trio, to be quite as good as the 2024 group, because that was just a really, really good group of Shamari Simmons, Xavier Alford, and Ghost Rouser. But the depth sounds like it should be better, and both the starting group and the depth should be remarkably better than last year. So, again, an encouraging thing across the secondary, the work that this staff did, primarily in the transfer portal, but also building up some of the homegrown guys, like the Rodney Bimmages, like the Montana Warrens, Guy McDonald's, ones that have been in this program for 2-3 years. That really says something when you're bringing all those pieces together. Yeah, have some questions elsewhere on the roster, but that secondary could be something to get excited about.
All right, so before we get into our predictions, gentlemen, let's talk some special teams real quick. Looks like that we have our kicker at Carson Smith. Jack Nudo has familiarity there. Bring him in. I think both kickers have been pretty good this fall. Mm-hmm. We're not going to have the range. We're not going to see that range that we did last year from Jesus Gomez, but I think from 50 and in, ASU fans should feel pretty good about the situation. Now, of course, the punter battle has been like kind of the big thing throughout fall camp, and it looks like at this point, I feel like Nick McClarty might be the leader in the clubhouse.
By a hair.
It's close,
By a
though.
hair. I mean, I thought in the spring when they brought him in, I was feeling bummed for Cannon Floyd. Like, okay, they brought somebody to push you, and this guy's probably going to take your job. But I give Cannon Floyd a lot of credit that he's in the spring. I think he was just okay, but I think he made a jump in fall camp. It's really, really close. When you have a guy like Nick McClarty, 6'7", no, he didn't get a scholarship from Gonzaga, but still 6'7". And
You're not going to do the thing?
yeah.
Oh, no.
Hello, fellow kids.
But ultimately you're 6'7", you're with that leg, things are going to happen. But Cannon Floyd is definitely holding its own. So if McClarty is going to win the punting job, it's really not going to be by a wide margin by any means. But I just feel that punting should not be an issue. You got to feel bad for Cannon Floyd because I think he's a talented punter, but man, he just could not stay healthy his first 2 years at ASU. If he can be healthy this year, he might surpass McClarty. He might end up being the starter, if not for the whole season, maybe for a portion of the season. But those are good problems to have. Again, that good headache, because I don't remember the last time where ASU had like really two good punters, and we know how much of a sore spot punter was the last few years. So nice to see that at least on paper, that's not going to be an issue.
I think between place kicker and punter, as long as they're not liability, as long as they're not taking you out of games or losing games or missing a 35-yard field goal down one, the last couple plays of the game, something like that. As long as they stay away from that liability thing, that itself is an improvement. I
think striking a balance with Jack Nudo and Mike Cyphers has been massively beneficial for this unit. It's cool to see Cyphers bounce around. One day he's working with the long snappers, one day he's working with the place kickers, then the punters, and you can just see kind of overall, I feel like just the entire group's floor has raised quite a bit. And I think there is definitely something to be said for Canyon Floyd. I think those injuries really affected him more than people want to attribute that to. To see him, what I assume is fully healthy, we're seeing that boom that we saw when he was at Horizon High School, and he was, if not the top punter in the nation, one of the top punters in the nation. And then McClarty has been as advertised. It comes from a really big program, and able to kind of show off what they're doing. And it's been cool to see. Just it's not a this person won it by default. It's everybody is pushing each other in that group.
Yeah, it's been good to see, and the Cyphers, that addition I think has been so huge.
Oh, yeah.
Because even just looking at McClarty from spring to fall, it just it's, I don't say entirely new punter, but it's far more consistent, and you're seeing the guy that's not just kind of shanking balls off the side of his foot like he was with regularity in spring. This is a guy that's putting that 6'7", 200 some odd pound force into those balls, and so. Kenny raved about both punters the other day. It's, consistent 4.4, 4.5 hang time. So, yeah, we'll see. If that floor is just don't be just be a net neutral. Just be okay.
Yeah.
Like the other areas of this team, that could be enough.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, we glossed over punt return. Can we talk about Doug Tamaro at Camp Tonazona and his punt return prowess?
Legend. Although, so today. We were chatting near one of the and he had another chance. And
did he?
He said it was because he had some papers in his hand. But come on, a true return man.
No excuse.
Would Hines Ward make that excuse?
Exactly. But yeah, no, so
Douglas.
Doug make some clutch catches in the thin air up there at Camp T. All right, gentlemen, it is time we go on the record with how we see this 2026 Sun Devil season happening. Of course, we're going to do our usual kind of group of over-under, some statistical measures here, some breakout players, some star players, and then ultimately some team records. Let's start off easy as we do this year. And this could be a little bit more different or interesting than the last couple of years. Gentlemen, we're setting, first off, name who you think is going to lead the team in rushing yards, and if that total will be over under 749.
Marquise Gillis, I'm just really, really high on that player. I think he's going to be the leader, but under 749, just because, again, if it's going to be a true running back by committee, which I think it will be, I think it's going to be hard for anybody to get anywhere close to 800.
I am Team Kyson Brown, and I'm going to go over.
I'm also Kyson Brown, but I'll go under.
I'm going Marquise Gillis under. I think we're going to see some multiple guys get some of that action there. Team rushing yards over under. We're setting at 22.99.
I would say over, maybe not by a whole lot, but again, if we talk about running back by committee, it only lends itself to be higher than that.
I'll go over, not by much, but over.
Yeah, I'll echo the same. I'll take the over, but we're not really smashing it.
I'm going under because I think passing game will be pretty good, and that kind of leads in the next category: team passing touchdowns over under 19.5.
With this wide receiver group, it has to be over.
I'm going to go over because I think Carde Mack's going to get a couple in there.
I think it's you got to go over. If this is an under situation, that's a big concern.
All right, I too will go take the over. Over under quarterbacks to start a regular season game 1.5.
I'm going to go under. Isn't it time that ASU would just have a quarterback start game one to the bowl game? I'm going under. It has to happen one of these years.
It's ASU football over.
I think 2021 was the last time that the same person started all games of quarterback. Yeah, you got to take the over until it's the under.
I too will do that. Total catches by tight ends over under. We're setting at 49.5.
Sore subject, Brad. I got to go under right now.
I'm going to go under because I don't know how much 12 personnel is actually going to happen here. Just sheer opportunity, I feel like it's not going to be there as much.
You could cut that number in half, and I would still take the under. So I'm taking way under.
I will take the under as well. Team sacks over under 25.5.
Over because I like this group a lot, but maybe not by a whole lot, but over.
I haven't gone under on anything, so I'm going to go under on this.
I'll go over, but I think this is like an intelligent, point. I don't think it'll be too much beyond that.
Yeah, this is a good line.
Yeah.
I'm taking the over there. One score games 4.5.
Oh, that's easy. Over. It's a Big 12.
Smash it. You could have put it at 7, and I would have.
Same.
Hulk smashing the over. This team has played 27 games the last 2 seasons. 16 of them have been by one score.
Jeez.
This is a 8-game a season, 1 score game. That is such a difficult thing that I just rattled out of my brain. They play a lot of close games. Over.
Yes, the over. Yeah, because I think that was a holdover. We thought, last year's team is going to be so good. There's going to be some blowout. No. It's in the Big 12 DNA. All right, here we go. Offense. Over under 28 points per game scored, which for comparison's sake would be roughly middle of the FBS.
I would say over. There's way too much talent to be under. Maybe not by a whole lot, but 28 should be over.
I'm going to go over, but by a very, very small amount.
They were a little under 26 points a game last year. I'm actually going to take the under, just these offensive line concerns and quarterback uncertainty. Until I see it together, I'm going to go a little bit under.
I'm not quite there, but because I think they'll clear it, but not by much, but mainly for those same reasons. Because the weapons versus the offensive line concerns, I'm still trying to reconcile for me. All right, Big 12 rank in scoring defense.
I love this defense, but realistically, number 3.
I was going to say 3 as well.
They were 8th last year. I'm going to say 8th again. I'm going to go.
That was shocking to me because I was trying to figure out last year's defense was so good, and then they were middle of the pack.
Well, the offense is so bad. That's the thing.
But I think rebound year 3rd. I'm taking. Yeah. All right, so tackle leader, typically, is anybody not taking Owen Long?
Can I be contrarian and say Lyric Walls?
Oh,
I'm on record.
Okay. Because that was gonna say basically going to reformat to who's number 2,
or if you have a different number 1, because I thought we kind of thought that Owen Long, you bring back the nation's leading tackler, the odds of him being the team leading tackler.
Contrarian Hode. Okay,
but we don't like to get too many unanimous easy answers here. We want some hot takes.
Although my number 2 is going to be Lyric Rawls. So
my number 2 is going to be Martell Hughes.
Same with me, especially with the Fiaseu injury, maybe more reps than there would be otherwise. And I think that Hughes is going to skyrocket this season. Yeah, taking him number 2.
TFL leader.
That's a tough one.
It is tough. I went with Owen Long. He had 5 last year, which doesn't seem like a ton, but that did lead Colorado State. I think this is going to be more of a group approach. Just a lot of questions. I'm going to go with the guy that I think is just going to be tackling a lot of people.
I had 2 Owen Long. I mean, you look at ASU sack and TFL leader last year was a linebacker in Keyshawn. So I think Owen Long's a guy who just the ball's on the field, he's near it. So
I'll go Martell Hughes. I don't know why. My hunch.
okay.
I'm gonna go CJ Fite.
All right. Sack leader. I have Jalen Thompson.
I'm Aaron Winston.
I had Thompson as well.
I'll just say Clayton Smith. I'll say he gets to 5 sacks. He gets out of the 4 to 4.5 sack, status quo.
Couple
Why not?
tight end touchdowns, couple sacks.
There you go.
There we go. Like, what's the
Current day Miles Jack.
Yeah, what is
Hornig
it? Paul-
Award, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Paul Hornig Award. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
like it.
There we go. Okay, this might be based on how we've talked. Another unanimous interception leader.
Ashton Stamps.
Okay, never mind. That's Josiah McGrew for me. That's
Same. Yeah.
I was gonna go Stamps.
Okay. Well, it's half unanimous.
Yeah.
All right.
Post
We're
unanimous.
forming
yeah.
teams now.
Gentlemen, all right. So, of the total number of field goals attempted from 40 plus, what will be the made percentage? I say 60.
68.
64.
So Carson Smith was 7 of 10 from that range last year, 3 of 10 the year before. I'm kind of finding a semi-middle spot, agreeing with Brad again, 60%.
All right. So, this is among returning players. And this is just kind of a more subjective approach. Who's going to be your breakout star? Who's not a star now that will be by the end of the year amongst returners?
Martell Hughes.
Rodney Bimmage.
My first answer with the rushing leader might have tipped the Kyson Brown.
I also have Rodney Bimmage. Now, this will be 2 names that we need from you, one for offense, one for defense. Top first-year transfers. To me, again, I might be taking some low-hanging fruit here. Omarion Miller on offense, Josiah McGrew on defense.
Yeah, same. I'm not going to go crazy here.
I'm gonna go Reed Harris and Owen Long.
I'm going Miller and Long.
All right. It's good enough. Top true freshman.
Daquan Dunn.
I'll go Carde Mack.
I'm going Dunn. And I figured that would be a unanimous one. So I like that we're getting some variety.
This is why we have this
I-
diverse
Yeah.
panel here. Yeah, Daquan Dunn is my guy as well. Home sellouts. Of course, the streak is at, 10 in a row?
It's not an attractive schedule, but Graham Rossini, I forget how many weeks ago, was talking about that everything increased as far as renewals and
90
more
some odd
season
percent.
tickets. So I would say 6.
I think streak will see 2027.
I'm going to say 3. It's just so hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that that could be a thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
We've just
I
seen,
know,
and
yeah.
this season could, there are a lot of ways it could go. So I'm going to be super conservative and say half the season, which again would be it's remarkable under any circumstance. There are a lot of years where if you get 1, maybe 2, depending on if you had like a USC or an Oregon or something like that coming to town. So yeah, anything really is remarkable.
I'm going to go 6 because, I mean, they're all Saturdays. I mean, there's not necessarily some huge flash, but I think there's some good matchups on that schedule as well. All right, so over under total regular season wins away from Tempe. Was that an over and under?
Yeah, so over under there. So we're talking the regular season games played away from Tempe. We're being kind of nerdy with the semantics here, so that the London game is considered. We're not just saying road games. All the games played away from Tempe.
Yeah.
Over under of 2.5.
Okay, because that's good. I actually forgot to copy the actual over under on. So yeah, 2.5.
I think over because I think they could beat Kansas. I think it could beat UCF, and I think they could beat U of A. So I'll go over.
I'm going to go over as well. U of A coin flip at Kansas, I think, should be a win at UCF. And then at least one of the 2 of Tech and BYU, I think they get a win.
I'm going to go under, at least at this point. This is a very different team away from Tempe versus in Tempe. Each year, under Kenny Dillingham, ASU has lost on the road to a team that finished with a losing record. Now, the first year that didn't really mean much, of course, with what was going on with ASU. So there have been some slip-ups, and it's a really difficult road schedule.
I'm going under. I'm going 2. Not to tip my hand on the final record prediction, but yeah, I mean that is, of course, we talked about a brutal road slate, but I do think they get it done in London. Most important game on the schedule that is not U of A.
I don't know if it's really not realistic that they can have one loss, probably being to Texas A&M by the time they play Texas Tech on the road. So I'd probably go with Texas Tech. I think if they only have one loss going into that game in Lubbock, that is definitely a game that can define your whole season and really shatter some of those low expectations. So I'll go Texas Tech.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, because even for folks who think that ASU is going to maybe be somewhere around 500 at the end of the year, that still could include a 4-1 start going into Lubbock, and who knows what's going on with their quarterback position, because they're still in the market for one, and obviously they're the reigning Big 12 champion. So to me, that all adds up to making it a huge game.
I'm gonna go Oklahoma State. I think a win there, it's one type of season. A loss there, it's a different type of season. Also senior night. So Oklahoma State and ASU, I feel like, are kind of jockeying for a similar spot, at least coming into the season, and you're getting them towards the end of the year where they've probably ironed out some of the newness of them. So I'm going to go Oklahoma State.
I'm going to say Kansas State, because that's the game in between the roadies to Tech and BYU.
Fair.
And there's a huge difference between 0-3 and 1-2 in that span.
Yeah.
And that's at home. I think that's a must-win. And that's going to be for my answer for my next category is biggest win, Kansas State, because I think that will help kind of, stem the tide a little bit in those 2 incredibly difficult road games and give you a chance to do some stuff down the stretch.
I'd say Kansas State too. It seem like them and Oklahoma State are kind of like the dark horses in the Big 12. So I agree, Kansas State.
At BYU, Halloween, things are going to get weird.
All right.
This is it's not a massive opponent, but I'm just going to say Kansas. I'm going to say what that game abroad brings and the stage that it'll be and what it could mean toward at least the start to the season. If it goes the other direction, that's a really, really bad thing. So though it's kind of an expected win, a lot of bets are off, and there's a little teaser spoiler alert for an upcoming question. I think to get a win there, it's a big deal.
All right. So then next up is worst loss. For me, it's Oklahoma State. I think, to your point, Jordan, with them, that offense, mess to maker, that time of the year, if it was like in the first few weeks, I think it's different. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a rough night for the 86 throwback uniforms.
Yeah, I would have to go Oklahoma State too. I mean, I think a lot of people just really don't know how to look at this team. I mean, it's absolutely dreadful in 2025 and so much momentum, and in 2026. But, yeah, I think that would probably qualify for worst loss.
I'll go at Tech.
I don't love myself for saying this, but it's the one at the end of the season, and that would make, 4 out of 5 losses in that regard?
It's been a while. If
that's
happens.
not good. Yeah.
Kenny would be 1 of 3.
Yeah.
All right. Trap game. Biggest trap. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to lose, but what is setting up to be the biggest trap for me at UCF?
I like that a lot, but I'm going to say the Kansas game just because all of the peripheral supplemental things that go into that trip. Now, obviously, Kansas has to do it as well. When I think trap game, I think just like it's a weird circumstance or a game that is, an otherwise not super difficult team, but plotted in between some challenging teams, that sort of thing. I just feel like that everything surrounding the international travel kind of creates a trap.
Baylor's is the next game after the bye week, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. I just feel like, that game in London, even though I think they should win, and I know they get a bye week, and it's kind of weird to talk about a trap game when you have a bye week the week before, but I think Baylor just has the makings of a trap game. I mean, how do they come back from London, in terms of their mindset, win or lose?
I am not very high on Kansas State this year, especially with the recent injuries to their tackles.
Yeah.
But I think you had a great explanation of it, sandwiched in between the 2 biggest away games, smack dab in the middle. And I think that's a very winnable game for ASU, but certainly feels like a trap.
All right, next up, the number of first or second team all Big 12 players. Bonus points if you want to say who they are. I'll start off. I have 4. I have Tana, Owen Long, CJ Fite, and Omarion Miller.
I don't know if I would go as far as names, but I think ASU gets 2 on the first team, 1 on the second team.
I'd say 3 across them. It's tough because they have other players that you feel like could be qualified, but with such a big conference, there's just a lot to pick from. So guys just kind of get snubbed by. I mean, last year they went to a 3rd team, which I don't think they did the year before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll say 3.
I'll go 3 because I don't think the receivers at least will crack the first team because I think it's going to be such a spread out type deal.
All right. In the home stretch here, team MVP.
I think it has to be Owen Long just because I think the defense is really going to have to carry this team more than it really has in a long time. So Owen Long.
I agree with that, and I think not just because of what he brings to the table, but on offense, you don't know exactly what you're getting at quarterback. Running back is going to be a group. Wide receiver, there's a ton of talent, but kind of maybe, I don't know if cancels itself out is the right way to describe it, but it would be difficult to pick. So I think Owen Long stands out to me.
I was going to go Owen Long, but I need to be contrarian. So I'm going to go Jalen Thompson.
Oh, I would say, or you could be make it unanimous because I am going Owen Long.
Okay, I'll go Jalen Thompson then.
All right, this is the big one. Final regular season record.
I'm going to say 8-4, but it's going to be with hesitation because I just don't know how the tight end and the offensive tackle positions are really going to materialize. Are really going to be a liability or just going to be just an okay position that you can deal with? But, I'm sure you guys talked about this in other podcasts. I mean, the 9 straight weeks after that London game, after the bye week. I mean, stuff is going to happen. It's just a matter of the quality and the quantity of the crap that's going to happen when you play 9 straight weeks of football. That's why it's just hard to see this team win more than 8 games, and it's really unfortunate because they have more talent than 2025, I think.
And that's, I think it's like a cliche thing that really applies here is it's a more talented team, but I think could have a poor record, and that's my prediction is I'm just between the playing 3 preseason top 15 teams on the road, your rivalry games on the road, you got an international game, you got the 9 straight weeks. There's just a lot that's working against this team, so I'm going 7-5.
I think it's going to be a wild ride, but they go 8-4.
I have been saying for a while that this is a better team that's probably going to finish with a worse record than last year. The 9 straight weeks is grueling.
Oh, yeah.
The questions I have on the offensive line, the variance, I should say, like that. I can see a 5-win season. I can see a 9-win season. I can see everything in between. However, because of that 9 games, the questions at other positions, and honestly, the offensive line, I think I'm going 7-5. But again, this worst record, but maybe a better team, deeper team.
Mm-hmm.
And I have said, along with that, this is the 27's the year I think they make a serious run to contend. But yeah, I was wrong last time. I forget what my 2024 prediction was. Probably similar. Like
you and I were both 5-7.
I 5-7?
We were 5-7.
Yeah.
We're like and we were saying that they needed some breaks to get there.
Yeah. So hey,
I felt I was like, it's weird to be this optimistic, but I'm going to go 6 wins, and then they obviously accomplished that.
LA Bowl, if we're lucky,
right,
go to
right.
Gronk Bowl. All right, and then just any final Big 12 ranking bowl prediction. If you think they're going, I guess we're all think they're going bowling. And I guess nobody with our predictions would say any AP rankings.
Yeah.
And so I have them finishing 5th in the conference, and we're spending some point in December in Vegas.
Yeah, I'd say 5th in Vegas. Sounds right.
I had 6th in Vegas Bowl.
I'll go 7th, and I don't even know if it connects, but I'm going to agree with the ESPN on this First Responder Bowl in Dallas. I'm still trying to make sense of like the legacy bowls and all this stuff and how that all shakes out. It's complicated.
Because they got the Pac-12 Legacy Bowl tie-ins got extended 1 more year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Shreveport, I guess, technically is on the table.
Yep.
Just don't send me back to El Paso.
That's the thing is like
Great
I figured like that
folks.
landing spot makes sense, but I mean, ASU's had their rewards card punched too many times at the Sun Bowl, I think, for a lifetime.
Yeah,
they need a little break.
All right, so I think that's a show. I'd like to thank our illustrious guest, Rabino, Jordan, Hamm, Hode, start off with you. How can folks keep up with all the great stuff you're doing at Devil's Digest?
Yeah, everything devilsdigest.com, at Devil's Digest on Twitter. We still have our preseason sale going on for $30 a year. You'll be covered all throughout fall camp of 2027. So a great deal, lots of premium content that we produced the month of August, a lot more to come over the next 12 months and beyond. So just sign up at devilsdigest.com.
And a lot of good stuff going on in Sports 360 AZ, and and high school football is also kicking up too.
Yes, yeah. So we will have a live broadcast Thursday night for the high school season. I will be doing kind of the college side of things, and if you want to get the day-to-day stuff, awesome. If you also want the weird stories off the beaten path, I go off the beaten path a lot. And to tease a story coming out very, very soon, let's just say Jordan Baczynski and stand-up comedy. So, yeah, but follow us at Sports 360 AZ.
Did you know, and I try to be humble, but I can take credit for the Blockchinski.
Really?
Because there is a tweet, I could find it, and it was it was when he was playing here. It's like, Baczynski, more like Blockchinski. And it was just a thing that was, meant to fly off the cuff. So that's, should put that on my resume. Claim to fame. But he can have it. No royalties needed or anything like that. Jordan's a great dude.
While we're just taking credit for things that don't really matter, I was the first one to tweet Wild Scat, but no one retweeted it. So just putting it out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
Oklahoma
was a good
State game. That ASU fans probably want to forget.
Yeah.
All right, so a lot of good stuff, and of course, season's coming in just a few days. Make sure you follow the show on Twitter at SOTD Podcast, on Instagram at Speak of the Devils. Follow us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, give me a follow on all things social media at bdenny29.
And you can follow me at Joe Healy42. Once again, we humbly request and strongly encourage that y'all join us this Saturday, 3 p.m., 100 Mile Brewing for our 4th annual live podcast. And also, of course, a huge thank you and a shout out to our awesome sponsors, Burrito Express, Cactus Sports, of course, devilsdigest.com, and Sun Devil Family Charities.
Once you're done supporting all of our amazing sponsors, make sure to drop us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. A huge thanks to Christina in the booth making this episode possible. And Joe and I will be back next week as we preview ASU versus Morgan State.